This meeting of the Conshohocken Borough Council duly open and ready to conduct any business that may come before it. Could we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Checo, can you do roll call, please?
Yes. Councilmember Smith.
Present.
Councilmember Kingsley.
Present.
Councilmember Barton.
Present.
Councilmember Elam.
Present.
Vice President Sokolowski.
Here.
President Leonard.
Here.
Mayor Aronson.
Here.
And we'll note for the record that Councilmember Totino is absent. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Prior to this evening's council meeting, council did hold an executive session on property and collective bargaining matters. At this time, I will ask for public comment on any of the agenda items only. Does anyone have any public comment for anything listed on the agenda? Okay. So the first thing this evening under presentations is recognition of Quick Response Service QRS certification. Good evening, Tim. So the Borough of Conshohocken, in conjunction with Narberth Ambulance and the Conshohocken Fire Department, have successfully completed and implemented a Quick Response Service Program, QRS. QRS means an entity that provides emergency medical service to supplement local licensed ambulance providers. The Conshohocken Fire Department has medically licensed staff on duty. The staff is able to assist on EMS calls through the monitoring of EMS operations within the community. After a vigorous process, we have passed the final inspection by the Pennsylvania Department of Health Bureau of Emergency Medical Services. We would like to congratulate and thank the following teams and individuals for a perfect example of what cooperation, coordination, communication, and effort can accomplish. First is Tim Gunning, Fire Chief of the Conshohocken Fire Department. Second, Steve Young, Battalion Chief of the Conshohocken Fire Department. Jackie Pierce, President of the Conshohocken Fire Department. Andrew Carlin, President of Conshohocken Fire Department. Dave Murphy, Deputy Chief of the Conshohocken Fire Department. Leo Costello, Assistant Chief of the Conshohocken Fire Department. Joe Costello, Assistant Chief of the Conshohocken Fire Department. Calvin Perlman, Conshohocken Fire Department. Bill Weber, Assistant Chief of Narberth Ambulance. Chris Flanagan, Chief of Narberth Ambulance. Tim Dunnigan, Montgomery County EMS Administration. So we'd like to thank you all for your dedication, your hard work in completing all of this, and the Borough of Conshohocken sincerely appreciates it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Semicircle in the front. You're going to have to do it together a little bit more. Smush like each other.
Squish in, guys.
Stand up.
Do we need to stand?
Okay. One, two, three. One. Okay. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is Proclamation 2022-05, recognizing June 19th, 2022 as Juneteenth, and that will be read by Vice President Sokolowski.
Thank you, President Leonard. Whereas on January 1st, 1963, President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, setting in motion the end of slavery in the United States. And whereas news of the end of slavery did not reach the frontier areas of the United States, and in particular the southwestern states, for over 2.5 years. And whereas on June 19th, 1865, Union soldiers arrived in Galveston, Texas, with news that the Civil War had ended and that the enslaved were free. And whereas African Americans who had been enslaved in the Southwest began celebrating June 19th, commonly known as Juneteenth, in 1866 as inspiration and encouragement for future generations. And whereas the Borough of Conshohocken Borough Council acknowledges the historical significance of Juneteenth Independence Day to the United States. And whereas residents of Conshohocken are encouraged to join the continued nationwide celebration of Juneteenth Independence Day to provide an opportunity for the people of the United States to learn more about the past and to better understand the experiences of enslaved people that have shaped this country. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed, the Borough Council hereby proclaims that June 19th, 2022 is recognized as Juneteenth and encourages everyone to join in celebration and solidarity, and urges all residents to actively raise their own awareness of the significance of this celebration in African American history and in the heritage of our nation and community. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. So if council is so inclined this evening, the motion is to approve Proclamation 2022-05, recognizing June 19th, 2022 as Juneteenth in the Borough of Conshohocken.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is land use matters, public hearings, and ordinances. The first item is a public hearing on a conditional use application for 150 West 9th Avenue. Emily and John Crabtree are the applicant, and Mr. Peters, I will turn it over to you to open the hearing.
Thank you, President Leonard. If we could go on the record, please. This is the scheduled date and time for the conditional use hearing on the application of Emily Crabtree and John Crabtree for the property located at 150 West 9th Avenue in the Borough of Conshohocken. The parcel number for the property is 05-00-07284-00-1. The applicant seek relief pursuant to zoning ordinance section 27-1905-C to permit demolition of a single-family detached dwelling that is at least 50 years old. The applicants propose to replace the existing single-family detached dwelling with a new single-family detached dwelling in which applicants intend to reside, as they will present this evening. Borough Exhibits B1 is the application with cover letter dated May 24th, 2022, the application form, and an addendum to the application. Exhibit B2 is the deed to the property between Brian Clark with an E and Holly Clark with an E, grantors, and John R. Crabtree and Emily R. Crabtree grantees, recorded on November 16th, 2021, deed book 6255, page 01833. B3 is a boundary and topographic survey prepared by Ruggiero, Ruggiero, Plante, Plante, Land Design, dated November 15th, 2021, with no revision date. Exhibit B4 is a plot plan dated March 10th, 2022, marked DeLuca, DELUCA Construction, and Progetti, PROGETI. Exhibit B5 is a structural engineering report prepared by SE2 Engineering, LLC, dated March 25th, 2022. Exhibit B6 is a set of 10 slides. Exhibit B7 is the conditional use zoning determination of the Borough Zoning Officer dated May 5th, 2022. Exhibit B8 are the proofs of publication. The application was advertised on May 6th, 2022, and May 20th, 2022 in the Times Herald. That was for the initial hearing. And then again on June 2nd, 2022, and June 8th, 2022 for this evening, again in the Times Herald. The property was posted on May 31st, 2022, and then again on June 2nd, 2022. Before turning it over to the applicant, are there any parties here this evening that wish to speak with respect to this application? And we'll let the record reflect that there are no additional parties present with respect to this application. With that, I will turn it over to John and Emily, and I believe they will be presenting the same presentation that I identified as Exhibit B6. So I'll turn it over to you guys.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
Is this on? First, before we get into the presentation, I just wanted to let council know how great staff has been over the last couple months, getting us through the process and getting us here. Stephanie's been great, Mike, Eric, Bobby Joe, Brittany, everyone's been great to us. Little background on Emily and me. We've lived in Conchi for 10, 11 years. We currently live on West 5th Avenue. We love it. We bought the home on the lot in October with the intention of seeking the approval for demolition and then building a new home for our family to ultimately live in. So with that, I'll walk you guys through the presentation, and then there's a lot more meat in the actual application. So if you want to go through any details of the application, we could do that afterwards, or any questions, happy to talk you guys through it. So 150 West 9th Avenue, seeking permission to demolish existing home and replace with a new modern home. So the first slide is the location. So the lot's located at the corner of West 9th and Maple Street. Our lot is 46 feet wide on 9th Ave and 140 feet deep on Maple. Adjacent to our lot is two 30-foot wide lots that were previously a 60-foot wide lot with a single-family home on it. Now there's two new single-family homes on what was previously 60 feet. Here's a prior aerial. You guys see my, okay. So this is the existing bungalow. This is an older aerial. This was the single that was on the neighboring lot before, and then this was, Google Earth from, I guess, whatever period of time that was being demolished next door. Exterior photos. So as you see, single-story home, the garage and the curb cut are on Maple Street, cinder block construction, and then here's a street view of the home that was here previously on the adjacent lot. Some interior photos. It's just a dated home. I think it was built in 1923. The interior finishes are probably from the 50s, guessing by the tile. Proposed plot plan. I could probably zoom in a little bit, but the footprint of the proposed new home on the existing lot. So 5-foot side yards. Front yard is about 14 feet, which is consistent with the balance of the streetscape. And then the rear yard setback is 67 feet. And then we did a little chart, like a, current and proposed. So obviously the lot size and the width doesn't change. We'll have 2 off-street parking spaces in the garage. We'll intend to keep the existing curb cut. So similarly how it's set up now, with sort of like a tuck-under garage on the first level on the side on Maple, we'll keep that. Building width proposed is 36 feet compared to currently 24 existing. The new home depth is actually a little shallower than what's there now because it's a 2-story home, so we didn't need that full depth of the footprint that's existing. Rough square footage, just shy of 3,200. Building coverage 1880, so a little bit more coverage than what's there now, but still well under what's permitted by zoning. And then the front, side, and rear yard setbacks all comply with the zoning ordinance. The height's 30 feet 6 inches compared to 22. I believe 35 is the max height in that district. And then here's some sort of draft renderings of the proposed new home. So on the left side is from the 9th Ave. vantage point. The picture on the right is sort of a bird's eye view at the corner of 9th and Maple. On the left side here, this is on Maple Street, so you see no proposed change to the curb cut. Would keep the garage on the sort of like what I'll call the ground floor, or the basement floor, if you will. But really, it's a 3-story home on Maple Street and a 2-story home on 9th, just the way the topo is on 9th. And then the shot on the right is the backyard. We have 2 dogs, so it'll be a solid fence, not a see-through fence. Very important for my wife. And then here's the proposed floor plan. So on the left is the basement level or the garage level. So 2-car garage, potentially some finished space, and then the steps up to the first floor, which is really the first floor on 9th. Walk-in, open concept kitchen, dining room, and then the 3rd floor or the 2nd floor, depending on your perspective. And that's it.
Any questions for John or his wife?
Go ahead, Ian.
Do you plan on putting a deck on the back of the house at any point?
Let's see. Yeah, if we did, it would live in this little notch right here.
Okay.
But we want to, we're in a single now. I think our lot's like 4,000 square feet, but like I said, we have 2 dogs, so we want a little bit more space. 6,500 isn't a big lot for the rest of the world, but for Conchi, it's 50% larger than what we have now. So our goal the whole time has been to try to keep as much of the rear yard as possible. So if we did a deck, it would sort of live within this notch. We don't want to eat too much into the backyard. And again, obviously we, meet impervious and building coverage and all that stuff for zoning.
Anyone else on council have any questions? Kathleen?
Yeah, when would you plan on starting the building?
So if approved tonight, we're probably looking at like late August. It's all dependent, because then we have to submit our building permit, and that's a turnaround. But in a perfect world, late August.
As I understand it from reading it, that you're not seeking any variances. Everything else will be within the building codes.
Yes, ma'am.
I remember that. Okay. Cool.
No questions from anyone else? I would like to thank you for working with the borough and through the processes, and doing such a great job getting everything done and prepared for everyone to make it as smooth as possible, while respecting the overlay and keeping the footprint basically the same. We do appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. No, we get it. You guys have a lot on your plate, and we got to follow the zoning ordinance. So the alternative was to try to keep part of the building. That would have been.
And we know that you tried.
That would have been tough for a multitude of reasons.
Yes. We know that you did look at that, and we
Yeah.
appreciate that also.
Yeah, we started there.
Yes.
In full disclosure.
Yes, and that's a great thing, so. Okay, does anyone else on council have any questions? Okay, thank you for coming in.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So if council was inclined this evening, there are a set of conditions that you typically propose or impose for single-family homes. If council would grant this application, it would be a motion to approve, subject to the following conditions: that the project be constructed in substantial conformance with the application and the exhibits and testimony presented at the hearing, including specifically but not limited to Exhibits B4, which was the site plan, and Exhibit B6, which was the PowerPoint presentation. That the applicant will execute a deed restriction limiting use of the garage to the parking of motor vehicles. As you guys know, the purpose of that is to make sure that the garage remains used for off-street parking in order to satisfy the zoning ordinance requirements. Prior to demolition of the existing structure, the applicant will obtain a demolition permit. The applicant will enter into a stormwater maintenance and monitoring agreement for the property, the form of which will be subject to my approval and Steph's approval as borough manager. and the applicant shall otherwise comply with all federal, state, and local laws and regulations in completion of the project. So if you're inclined, that is the motion that administration has put together for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Peters. So if council is inclined, the motion is to approve, to grant conditional use approval for 150 West 9th Avenue.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
And
Thank you.
Mr. and Mrs. Crabtree, we will issue this decision tomorrow. Okay? Yep.
Next item on the agenda is a public hearing on stormwater management ordinances. Stormwater management ordinance amendment to the stormwater management of the section of Saldo. I will again turn this one over to Mr. Peters gladly.
Sounds good. And I'll apologize to our court reporter. He and I did this exact same thing last night. So this is the scheduled date and time for a public hearing on the following ordinance. An ordinance of the Borough of Conshohocken, Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, amending Chapter 19, Stormwater Management of the Borough's Code of Ordinances by repealing the current provisions in their entirety and replacing them with updated provisions amended to be consistent with the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection's Model Stormwater Management Ordinance as part of the Small Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System MS4 permit program, repealing all prior inconsistent ordinances or parts of ordinances, providing a severability clause, and providing an effective date. Exhibits. Exhibit B1 is the ordinance under consideration with my attestation to and timestamp from the Montgomery County Law Library. Exhibit B2 is the proof of publication. This hearing was advertised on June 1, 2022 and June 8, 2022 in the Times Herald and the Times Herald Digital. Exhibit B3 is the review of the Montgomery County Planning Commission supporting adoption of the ordinance. With that, you do have a representative from your borough engineer's office here that will do a very brief summary overview, and then I will provide some specifics for the public in terms of what the ordinance actually contains. So I'll turn it over.
All right. I'm Jeff Atanasio from Gilmore & Associates. The ordinance is based off of the DEP model ordinance, as Mike alluded to. We reviewed the ordinance and worked with borough staff and Mike to make minor tweaks to better fit the borough's needs. The ordinance is required for the borough to stay compliant with its MS4 permit obligations. 95% of the permit of the ordinance pertains to larger land development projects. So as a short breakdown here, for new impervious, less than or equal to 600 square feet of impervious added, you're exempt from the ordinance. For impervious 601 square feet to less than or equal to 1,000 square feet, utilizes the small project stormwater management section, which what that means is for any homeowner, for instance, that is going to put in a garage that's say 25 by 15, which is a pretty standard size, and say about 200 square feet of driveway extension, that would equate to about 575 square feet. So you get an idea of what you can do or what the residents can do that would be exempt. And then just over that exemption for the small projects, they're dealing with the first inch of water runoff on the property. It's usually handled by a small rain garden or a small seepage bed, which is just stone in the ground to help infiltrate and recharge the ground. So those are really the overview of the changes, of the significant changes that you would see compared to what you had before.
Any questions before I get into just an outline of what the ordinance contains generally?
I did not. Anyone, counsel?
No, I've heard it.
No, Mr. Peters.
Very good. Thank you very much.
No problem.
So the ordinance, again, repeals the borough's existing stormwater management ordinance at Chapter 19. It was initially prepared by your borough engineer's office, and it's based on the model ordinance prepared by DEP. The ordinance replaces all existing provisions of Chapter 19, and attached to the ordinance is an Exhibit A, which is the new, or would be the new stormwater management ordinance in the borough if you adopt it. The new provisions also contain Appendix A and Appendix B, and contains all the general provisions regarding repealing prior inconsistent ordinances, etc. The new ordinance, stormwater ordinance, would contain 9 articles. Article 1 contains general provisions, so the short title, the statement of findings, the purposes, the borough's statutory authority to adopt the ordinance, the applicability of the ordinance, contains, again, general repealer clauses, things of that nature, addresses what happens if a permit is erroneously issued, provides for waivers from the requirements under the ordinance pursuant to certain standards. Article 2 contains the ordinance's definitions and rules regarding interpretation. Article 3 contains the stormwater management standards of the ordinance, including general requirements under the ordinance, exempted activities under the ordinance, as just explained, volume control requirements, and rate control requirements. Article 4 contains the ordinance's stormwater management site plan requirements, so general requirements for plans, the plan submission procedure, the plan review procedure, the procedure for modification of plans after submission, the procedure for resubmission of disapproved plans, authorization to construct under approved plans, which in this ordinance lasts for approximately 3 years, although there are exceptions, requirements for as-built plans, completion certificates, and final inspections. Article 5 contains the operation and maintenance responsibilities under the ordinance, including specifics regarding the responsibilities of developers and landowners under the ordinance, requirements for operation and maintenance agreements, and requirements for performance guarantees. Article 6 contains provisions for fees and expenses under the ordinance, including fees for site plan review and inspection, and specifics regarding the expenses covered by those fees. Article 7 contains prohibitions under the ordinance, including specifically prohibited discharges and connections, restrictions on roof drains and sump pumps, and restrictions on alteration of existing stormwater facilities. Article 7 contains the ordinance's enforcement and penalties provisions. It authorizes municipal officers access to the facilities for inspection. It sets forth inspection requirements. It sets forth enforcement provisions. It provides for suspension and revocation of permits and approvals under specific circumstances. And it contains violations and penalties provisions and appeal provisions. And Article 9 contains the references for the authorities relied on in the ordinance. Appendix A contains various coefficient tables to be applied under the ordinance. And Appendix B contains specifics on the simplified approach to stormwater management that was discussed previously. With that, are there any questions from Borough Council regarding the ordinance? And are there any questions from the public regarding the stormwater ordinance? We'll let the record reflect negative responses to both. This matter will be continued to Borough Council's Wednesday, July 20th, 2022 meeting for a vote. That meeting will take place at 7 p.m. in this room at Borough Hall, 400 Fayette Street, Conshohocken, PA 19428. And President Leonard, would you like me to get right into the Sato amendment?
Yes, please.
Okay. The next hearing and the next ordinance is an ordinance of the Borough of Conshohocken, Montgomery County, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, amending the Code of Ordinances of the Borough of Conshohocken, Chapter 22, Subdivision and Land Development, Part 4, Design Standards, by repealing Section 410 Drainage in its entirety and replacing it with a new set of provisions, repealing prior inconsistent ordinances or parts thereof, providing a severability clause, and setting an effective date. Borough exhibits. Exhibit B1 is the ordinance under consideration with my attestation to and timestamped by the Law Library. Exhibit B2 is the proof of publication. This hearing was advertised on May 31st, 2022 and June 7th, 2022, again in the Times-Herald and Times-Herald Digital. And Exhibit B3 is a review of the Montgomery County Planning Commission, again supporting the ordinance. In this hearing, we will incorporate the prior comments from the borough engineer from the last hearing. And we will note that this amendment is designed to align the subdivision and land development ordinance with the stormwater management ordinance, which you just considered. Section 22-410 contains the subdivision and land development ordinance's drainage standards. So this ordinance sets forth the purpose of the ordinance, the applicability of the ordinance, site drainage plan requirements, and storm sewer design requirements, including formulas for storm sewer design, storm sewer pipe design requirements, inlet and manhole design requirements, drainage channel and swale design requirements, end wall design requirements, bridge and culvert design requirements, and roof drain and sump pump design requirements. The ordinance contains requirements regarding stormwater best management practices, BMP designs, including storage design requirements for compliance with the PA BMP manual and accepted and sound engineering practices, specific design criteria for infiltration BMPs, underground BMPs, bioretention BMPs, above-ground basin BMPs, primary spillway and outlet pipes, and emergency spillways. And again, the ordinance contains the general provisions regarding a severability clause, repealing prior inconsistent ordinances or part thereof, and contains an effective date. With that summary, are there any questions from Borough Council?
I do have a question, Mr. Peters.
Yep.
So if we accept the ordinance and vote to move forward with the ordinance, the construction that's currently underway, do they comply with the old ordinance, or do they need to comply with the new ordinance?
Good
And what's
question.
the timeline?
They need to comply with the ordinance that was in place when it was approved.
Okay.
So they need to comply with the old ordinance. It's a good question. This only applies moving forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions from council? And any questions from the public? We'll let the record reflect there was no response. This matter will also be continued to Borough Council's Wednesday, July 20th, 2022 meeting for a vote, and that meeting will take place at 7 o'clock p.m. in this room at Borough Hall, 400 Fayette Street, Conshohocken, PA 19428. And with that, we will close out the hearings for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peters.
Thank you, sir.
The next item on the agenda is Borough Trash and Recycling Alternative Trial Period. Mr. Sokolowski and Frank, if you could come up. Mr. Perry. Thank you.
So good at
I know.
I just said he's very good at packing his stuff up.
Very efficient he is.
Yeah. He does it a lot. So.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Ray Sokolowski, the Executive Director of Operation. This is Frank Perry. He is the, according to the union, he is the lead worker, but he is more considered the foreman of the Borough of Conshohocken. We want to discuss an alternative to some of our current scheduling with trash pickup in the Borough of Conshohocken. It's something that we have had discussions in the past prior to COVID. So these things have been going on for a while. We didn't know where we were going to end up because of COVID and how everything was going to look after that. But it looks like we can start moving in a different direction, and we'd like to do an alternative method for at least 90 days to see if this would work, and then have a discussion. And then if it would be implemented, it would be implemented as of January 1st. How we got here, the borough basically has evolved substantially, I'd say since probably 2012, 2013 period. There have been, Marywood Park was basically a park that was maintained by someone who lived at Marywood Park. It wasn't maintained by a borough employee. At one time it was Frank, right? Yeah, at one time it was Frank who lived there. But it was a private-public partnership, and it wasn't done by a borough employee. Since then, that park has been updated, and our liabilities have changed substantially. So it's been taken over by the Borough of Conshohocken. It was also the park itself was run by a group, a committee, and a lot of the work that was done by that committee and the decisions were made by that committee, the borough employees did not bear the brunt of having to maintain those buildings. Since then, that's changed substantially. The borough actually has to maintain everything now, including, everybody forgets this, and we just talked about it today, but the A field. The A field was actually maintained, so you were here, the A field was actually maintained by a groundskeeper that lived at the A field. It was not done by the borough. So now everything is done by the borough. Can you go to the other one first? So this will give you an idea, a general idea of what the borough's structure is as far as the employees go. Frank, the foreman lead worker, he has now 3 managers that he works with. Landscaping and grounds, buildings, and roads and street signs. We also have a mechanic. The mechanic's position involves the repair of 40 and maintenance of 40-plus vehicles. That doesn't include any of the small engines or anything else that he has to do as part of his job. We have sanitation drivers and sanitation laborers. At least 8 of them are required on Monday and Tuesday to perform that duty, trash and recycling. That's 8 as a minimum. 8 persons as a minimum on Monday and Tuesday. Then there's yard waste on Wednesday. That involves at least 3 laborers. 1 would be a driver. As far as our landscaping goes, Mike Maxwell, who is the manager, and Andrew, I'm not going to try the last name, Andrew K., they are in charge of basically maintaining all the parks. So when there's someone available, they switch over to do the parks. And what was the acreage that we said, 20?
It is, for the parks, it is 29 and a half, roughly 29 and a half acres.
29 and a half acres of parks done by 2 to 4 employees. Dan Ingram is the building manager. At one point, that wasn't an issue. The building, we rented the Keystone building on First and Fayette. Now we own it. And we are landlords. We went from one completely side of it to the other. So Dan has to maintain these buildings for the most part 24 hours a day. This one he does because it's also a police station. So he's on call 24 hours a day. We have 10 borough-owned properties, major borough-owned properties that require immediate attention if something happens. But it's more on the line of 18 because some of the small properties like the VFW monument, that belongs to the Borough of Conshohocken. Snow removal has to be done on that. That's not part of this. But sometimes the smaller properties actually are more time-consuming than the larger ones. They have to still get there, drive a vehicle there, do whatever they need to do. And then lastly, Derek Haley, who's now doing the roadway work and street signs. They're in charge of road repair, storm sewer line painting, storm sewer and line painting. Again, all of those things are bigger now than they were before. Line painting in the Borough of Conshohocken meant the intersections. Now we have parking spaces. The intersections are going to be more important. They're going to be more time consuming. The only reason that you haven't seen more work on those kind of issues is because there's no paint. There's just literally there are times that the borough cannot get paint to do those things, but you'll see more and more and more of it as the supplies get bigger. And then we also have concrete work that is required now because of all the sidewalks that the borough owns, the substantial amount of sidewalks. If you if you think about the A field and the entire walkway around the A field, all of that has to be maintained, repaired, or replaced by the Borough of Conshohocken. Everything in front of us here. And Marywood Park, the entire block, all the concrete is taken care of by the borough. So right now we have 15 public service employees, and to break down the hours of it, basically, when I did all the hour breakdown, we are probably short what's referred to as FTEs, full-time equivalent employees, by 2. So they're doing all this work, and they're doing it with what on paper says that they should have 2 more people. So we're trying to do things more efficiently and look at what we should be doing and what we shouldn't be doing. And something that has been long discussed here, definitely by a previous councilman, Bob Stokely, he used to bring it up all the time, was scheduling of trash. So trash here is done Monday and Tuesday is the day of that you have trash and recycling. Wednesday is yard waste. Thursday or Friday is another trash day. When we went to the numbers, I didn't want to bore everybody with every single number, but we went back about 18 months, and this seems to be where we land with our numbers. So Monday and Tuesday, the trash is 91,000 and 62,000 pounds. When we get down to Thursday and Friday, it's a quarter of that. The issue becomes that they still have to have 4 to 5 people on those trucks. Those trucks still have to do the entire borough of Conshohocken those 2 days. So we have fuel consumption, we have 4 or 5 people that can only do that work that day. That does not seem to be the best way we can spread our workforce. So we looked at an alternative schedule where we would do 1 day a week pickup on the east side and 1 day on the west side. Recycling would be the same. Monday and Tuesday would not change. Now, obviously, those numbers would increase, we would think, but there's not even been a substantial increase over the COVID period. We kind of thought that that was going to happen too, that everybody was home and we would see substantial increases. We did not. They've pretty much, that 91,000 is pretty much where we stand on the east side. And I think what we've basically come down to is if the man or the personnel could be spread over Monday and Tuesday to just do trash, then Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, things like road work that is substantially needed in the borough of Conshohocken. The other items on that list that you saw would be easier to do. And vacations and things like that, again, these are all things that play into this. It would just be simpler for someone like Frank to manage those employees and get them out to do things. And there are a few other things that we could take on at that point too. As we know from the past, when we've changed anything to do with trash, it becomes a big issue. But we would work with everybody with this. This is not going to be something that we would just all of a sudden implement, and then the next day, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, you're going to get a citation. That's not how we're looking at this. We're looking at it over this three-month period. We know we're going to have some growing pains with this. There's going to be issues with the size of the trash cans, who needs what, who doesn't need, who needs more trash cans. But all these things we have, and we don't. There's not an economic effect on the borough. We already have these things in stock. We have extra from when we purchased them. We purchased enough to have, I guess, enough, 25% maybe or so. We have 25% extra. We needed to do that in order to get the pricing down when we initially purchased them. So there's not an economic impact. It looks like, from our perspective, it would be more of an impact to the inconvenience of having one pickup. But when you look at it on the other side, I live in town, everyone lives in town. Sometimes it's a problem to put trash out twice a week. Sometimes for a lot of people, they would prefer to do it. And by those numbers, it indicates that there's two things. There's just not enough to do on Thursday and Friday, or it indicates that people just don't want to do it a second time a week. You also have the aesthetic effect throughout the borough, where on those 4 days, all these cans are out. on the sidewalks at the curb. We're eliminating 2 of those, where you wouldn't have the aesthetic effect on the borough. And we've had every single complaint about those from people that don't want, people want other people cited for not taking their trash cans in because they can't get around them with carriages. We've had all that. This seems to be a way to address some of that. We don't see a light at the end of the tunnel with one particular problem here, and that's the fuel problem. The fuel issue is also coming into play here, because if we're only running these trucks, remember, the mileage doesn't matter with these trucks. It's the amount of time that they're working. So 8 hours they're on, they're diesel trucks. It's the top of the chain as far as costs go. Just to give you an example, before the council meeting, I pulled our numbers for the last 5 months. So in the last 5 months, the highest we paid was $12,000 for the month. I just got the bill for this month, and it's $18,694. So it's 30% more than what we've been paying. And that doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon. So our fuel consumption budget is probably going to be absorbed within the next month. This is also a way to shut down 2 of these trucks and save at least that money for 6 months. So we would implement this sometime in August, the first week in August, the first Monday in August, and go for 90 days, see how it works. And from the logistical part of it and the operations part of it, I don't see any issues. Frank will talk about some of the things that we've talked to the employees themselves about to see what they think, because, again, they will take the brunt of the 2 days having to lift more or deal with this more. But he'll talk about that. But there's good parts of that and bad parts of it, all of which are unknown. We did our homework with the other municipalities. I know a lot of people like to hear that, even though Conshohocken is different, but we did look at other municipalities. Plymouth Township seems to be one of the only ones that is continuing to do it 2 days a week. Most other municipalities are doing it once a week, and most of the municipalities around us aren't using their own employees to do it. They're hiring outside contractors. That's a big issue for us, because these employees are not only doing one particular job. They have an eclectic a group here, and they have a lot of skills, and those skills can be put to use in other parts of the borough. And we'd like to be able to do that, but you can't find the time. When you have this to get done, that has to be done 4 days a week, and people are expecting it to be done 4 days a week, you just can't back off on it. It has to be done. It allows allows us to look at other things too. Another thing that we've always discussed was maybe doing this in alleys, looking at some of the alleys. One of the biggest problems with doing it in alleys is riding these trucks up and down the alleys 4 days a week. Well, we're not going to have to do that now. We would be halving that. So they would be going on the east side once a week and on the west side once a week. So Frank he has a list of all the alleys that he's actually went through and looked at the heights of the wires and the trees and everything to see if it's even feasible to do, and it's quite extensive. So there's always that possibility. We'll work with people if you have a large party, a graduation party on a Wednesday. We're not going to make you wait a week. We'll have a way that you can call the Borough Conshohocken, and a truck will go out and take care of it. We don't want to leave 4 or 5 trash cans out for a week after a party. So it's more it would have to be more customer service oriented to work in the Borough Conshohocken, because I think that's what the people of the Borough Conshohocken are used to, a little more customer service than, if we don't get it, you'll have to wait till the next week. That's why the borough has always wanted to have the pickup of trash sanitation done by employees inside the borough and not looked outside to have it done. Frank, you want to talk about some of this stuff?
Yeah, it will leave us a lot more time to do things like potholes and blacktop, our line painting, which, as Ray said, includes everything from crosswalks, stop bars, fire hydrants, and parking lines, which are getting added every year. We get requests for different streets to be lined for parking. We have very extensive street sign program. They need to be installed and removed when they need. We have a handicap parking program. They're constantly coming in, adding and subtracting them. We have to keep inventory of them and maintain and upgrade them when needed. So that will free up guys to do things like that, and also road work. The inlets assessment and repairs can also happen because we'll have more guys to do the road work that's needed. It's well overdue. There's a lot of stuff that has been let go because we just simply do not have the manpower and the time to do it. That's basically what I have for that.
And don't worry, like, everybody forgets that during COVID, none of this stopped. This part of it had to be done, and but we had to do it in we had to be very resourceful in how it was done. The borough never shut down through the whole period of time, but there were things that you just couldn't do. You're not going to, during COVID, send 2 people into a storm sewer to do that kind of work. So that's been pushed aside until we can get to a period of time now where everything seems to be more stable. We have the equipment that's needed to do most of the stuff. We do have one piece of equipment that we're waiting for that's going to help in the road work. It's a machine that will do some patching for us. So all the potholes and things that you see, some of the spider cracks that you see in the roadway, that machine should be in shortly, within the month. It was supposed to be here in January, but it should be here shortly. So they'll be able to have a group go out and do that. And some of these things you just can't do with one person. Even recently, I know that there was an issue with flags and flag posts, and these guys at one point when I started here, these guys were going up in ladders and putting up flags 15 feet in the air with 2 guys holding the bottom and 1 guy at the top. That's 3 people that have to do that. Those are things that we can't do when we have situations like this, and that's what they had to do in the past. They had to do whatever needed to be done to get things done. But we have so many more people. We're going to have a lot of people depending on the roads, a lot of people depending on making sure that they can get in and out of the borough of Conshohocken, and this is kind of what they're going to have to do. And this, I'd hate to say it, it's a major, I hate to say it, but I think it is the most major issue with any municipality is dealing with trash. It seems to be right now the biggest issue. It has to be done, but we all have to come up with a way to do it for the best way for your municipality. And this seems to be one. So we would certainly want any input from the general public on this. We certainly expect that it will not be a 100% friendly transition if we do it. But I think in the long term, just like some of the other things we had happen, it worked out in the long term.
Does anyone on council have any questions for Ray or Frank?
I do. Frank, from an employee satisfaction, when you talk to the employees, your team is very diverse, right? So some think that they're just trash men, but the reality is they have a lot of diversity in what they do for the borough. Right. Is that something that they want to maintain, as having that type of diversity and being able to use their skill sets in other ways than just trash collecting? And is that a way for us to retain good people for the borough of Conshohocken?
Yes, it is. We try to rotate them off, the days that are possible. It's not always the same guys. It has been, but we're slowly trying to get everybody to do different things. They're getting in the parks, they're getting road work, they're trying to get different things because they all want to do other things. It's not just, they do the trash when they have to or recycle when they have to, but they do want to get out there and do other things and they have all the skill sets to do it.
Great, thank you.
I have a question. You guys mentioned you're about 2 men, you're working like extra 80 hours a week. Does cutting back on the trash collection help that a little bit? I know they'll be reallocated, but does that kind of help that a little bit?
So if that, to make up for that lack of personnel, let's say lack of personnel for 2, this gets us pretty much square as to what the borough's doing now. But again, I think we've all looked at the 18-month map here and how that's going to change. And we've had 2 years of COVID. Now we're going to go from the 2 years of COVID and not having traffic to whatever's going to happen in the next 18 months. And let's say we do have a snowstorm. So I don't think anybody can predict what that's going to look like. But having to deal with that, and again, I want to make sure that everybody knows that everybody understands the importance of this. Some people are fanatical about it. If these guys are like a half an hour late to pick up trash, they'll get a phone call from somebody like, well, why haven't you picked up my trash? So I understand that, but there are other things that have to be taken care of. And, and we're not even going into, they're playing a significant role in emergency response now, too. The cleanup after the flood, that was all their responsibility. They've not only helped people in the borough of Conshohocken, but we were able to do it so efficiently that we had resources go out to Phoenixville to help them during their recovery period, too. So, we do, like I say, we have a diverse group. Just about everybody knows how to operate heavy machinery, and if they don't know how to operate it now, they will. But all 15 guys, when we first purchased a backhoe, we had 6 operators and we didn't have a backhoe. Now we have 14 people that can operate a backhoe out of the 15, and it's just a matter of time before everybody. They're a good group. But we just can't continue this methodology and have the expectations that I think everybody wants from the Public Works Department.
Thank you.
Anyone else, any questions?
So Ray, the Wednesday yard waste and the monthly bulk pickup, that stays the same?
Yeah, so those are the things that, the Wednesday part will stay. The bulk pickup, we're going to look at that over this period of time. As rentals, it's the other part that I deal with. Rentals have now fluctuated here. We did have a dip in the amount of rentals that we had at one point, but it seems now that if you own a house in Conshohocken, you don't sell it. You purchase another house in Conshohocken and you rent the one that you're leaving. And we've had a lot of that. So we're seeing a slight increase in some of the rental properties in town. So everybody moves out at the end of the month. Bulk becomes a big issue because everybody puts everything out at the end of the month. That's why you see the streets lined with that. So we might have to come up with some methodology for that. And the yard waste part is a huge problem right now. Upper Merion cut us off from grass clippings 2 years ago. They cut us off from yard waste this year. They're only taking yard waste from their school district, any other municipalities in their school district. So they're transporting yard waste to Schwenksville? Sellersville.
Schwenksville, in that area.
Yeah, so we have to,
It's
so
about a
that's
40-minute ride each way.
Yeah, so you figure 2 or 3 hours, they have one guy dedicated to doing that. And that's just we don't want to discontinue that, so we want to keep, and the 7th Avenue garage is certified to keep it, but you're only allowed to keep it at a certain height and a certain distance from residents, and we're at that level most of the year. So it does have to be hauled away, and that takes at least one driver, CDL driver, to take it. Everybody on the borough crew is a CDL driver too, so they can haul it. It's becoming very, very expensive and becoming logistically difficult to do some of these things. So a municipality our size that is now growing, we have to figure out what the best way to use our resources. And hopefully I think this will work. If not, then we'll move on to something else. But I think we've done enough homework to at least give this a good shot for
Thank you.
a 90-day period.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Frank. You have a question?
Yeah, is there a way to let the public know, like, ways to help the trash collectors as well as the crews? I noticed that if I put my trash cans closer to the neighbors, it makes it more efficient for them. Also, I put it by a driveway rather than behind parked cars, so that they don't have to drag it along. The trash crew are great, but I think they have to do too much. I think if we send out some kind of email blast, like, people just don't think, and there's a lot of tenants out there don't think, and it's just like, if you just let them know, like, by the way, if you have a property, if you're by a driveway, can you put it closer to your neighbors, so that the truck pulls up once, you know what I mean, instead of going along and it's behind some cars, they gotta drag it all the way back down around the sidewalk. I think letting the public know how they can help is helpful.
And I think that's a great idea, and I think we've also, when we've made those attempts, we've gotten a lot of good feedback. I think the recycling program, when that started elevating, we handed out door to door, everybody went out door to door, and it did help. But yes, I don't think that people realize what it takes to do what they do. Remember, Conshahocken's 17 road miles. Split that in half and think, these guys probably have to walk, you don't think about that, about 6 miles every trash day to collect. That's a lot of walking. And it's one person on the back of the truck. This will also give us the ability to put a second person on it to make that more efficient.
And they're always pleasant. I don't know how.
They are always pleasant. We have a wonderful...
It's Frank, it's the guy who's running it.
It's Frank. Frank, is that you? Is that
That's
all you?
always me, yes.
There you go.
We have
They are-
Anthony Scott on the Borough crew. He is the second mayor of Conshohocken. He smiles and talks to everybody. And look, I can't say enough about these guys. I think everybody knows how I feel about them. They're a very good group. They're a tight-knit group. They take care of each other, and they want what's best for the Borough of Conshohocken. When we ask them to do something, we very rarely get any kind of pushback on it. They are a union group, so if they didn't like it, they have ways to act on things that they don't like to do, but we do not have any issues. I mean, we are very lucky that we have the group that we have right now, and I certainly like to keep them all here.
Can I just interrupt for 1 second? So since we have questions from the audience, I'm just going to officially make this public comment time for this agenda item. So go ahead.
My only question is, with 2 days, and the plan sounds great, but what happens when that Monday is a borough holiday?
Yeah, I knew that was coming.
Now I have to wait a whole week to put my trash out?
You live on the east side, don't you?
Yes, we do.
How can you tell?
And
So, I mean, that,
it would be a Wednesday. Yeah, we would not, it makes it actually simpler to just go into to Wednesday. Now, that could be, we could discuss that and change it, but I think it makes sense for it to be Wednesday right now.
It's been,
Yeah, so
when the
you would
holiday
have trash
falls, it's
pickup.
been
Now,
on Wednesdays.
because now, if you have Monday pickup and it's a holiday, it doesn't get picked up till Thursday. So we would just pick it up on Wednesday
And
with the
recycle
yard
is-
waste. We get all the trucks out there. What they refer to this as is a double pickup. These would all be, these Mondays and Tuesdays would change to be all double pickups. So it would kind of be all hands on deck for Monday and Tuesday to get this done, and then they have a whole week of work that can be scheduled to do. You don't want to start road work and open up a hole in the ground and not be able to get to it because you have 2 guys call out sick and you have a couple guys on vacation, and everybody has to be dedicated to trash on Thursday to pick up 2,200 pounds. But that's what the plan is. And again, there'll be other things that we've worked out. These guys, they have a very, they have the ability to have a conversation with the homeowners, and they do things that I don't know about, I'm sure he don't know about, none of us know about. They take care of it, and they don't complain about it.
They take
It
care
gets
of the
done.
residents is what they do. They really do.
And we did have discussions with them, and it seems to be across the board what they would like to see happen too.
Sure.
And at least try it.
Okay. Is there anyone else for public comment on this particular item?
It's a great idea.
Thank you.
I think it's a great idea, especially with fuel costs. Some people don't even have enough trash during two pickups, so in terms of, the total, they're not, it seems like you get more trash on the east side, it looks like. And I think it's an excellent idea.
Yeah, no, that's true. We have more on the east side. It's just naturally going to have more. We have, I think, if you break down the residents, just if you think about Elm and Hector Street, they have the houses, most there are 16 to 18 foot wide and going from one end of the block to another. So,
Right.
Again, there's a lot of things that we'll look at with this. It's not. It won't be just this. This will just be part of it, and we'll take the feedback that we get from the residents and go from there.
Okay. Thank you, Ray. Thank you. Frank, do you have another question?
Yeah, so if residents are watching this and do have feedback, how do you want the residents to bring that feedback to you guys?
So generally, it'll come into either Allison through the comment sections in the website, or it'll go directly to Bobby Joe from my office and Bobby.
So they
Joe
can
gets
call or go into citizens.
It's always
requests.
better if we have a phone call and it's something that needs to be immediate, then it'll get immediately addressed. Sometimes if it goes on the website at 4:30 in the afternoon, it doesn't get addressed till the next day. So a phone call is always good. Somebody will always answer, and it'll always get addressed very quickly.
Our reasoning for doing it this evening in June is that we're going to highlight it at your meeting in July. We're also going to plan an upload to social media and the website with information and indications on how, if they have questions, who to reach out to. But we're really looking at this to be a one-on-one call for a conversation. But you can always use the citizen request on the link on the website, and that gets funneled through our citizen request response, and we'll get into the hands of the individuals that are prepped and prepared with this information you're seeing tonight to answer those questions.
And I do think that when we went to the recycling and the idea that everybody was out kind of handing things out and interacting, I think helps the one-on-one. So if that is something that we choose to do, I would volunteer to do that
The
again.
notification, we already have a.
Yeah, we have it drafted of what's going
Right.
to go out to the public for the trial period only. And then clearly, as we do the assessment, we roll into budget season and then contract season, and all of that's getting prepared for a 1-month start. In November and December, that's really going to be our assessment and decision-making timeframe, so that everyone is ready to go for a potential 1-month rollout.
Okay, I have a question. The time for putting out your trash cans the night before and putting them away the next day will be included in that to remind people of that?
We can do that.
Yeah, because we have people that put their trash out like at 6:30 in the morning, the day before.
Yeah, so we have it in there, the 5 p.m. and stuff, we have it in there.
Okay.
But we can highlight it.
Please.
Would be helpful.
I think so.
Okay. So if there's no more questions or comment from the public or council, if council is inclined, I would be seeking a motion to approve a borough trash and recycling alternative trial period to take place over the course of August of 2022 through October of 2022.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. This evening, there are 2 items for approval. The first is approve and adopt the May 4th and May 18th regular meeting minutes. The second is approve the May ending treasurer's report and accounts payable. So if council is inclined, the first motion is to approve and adopt the May 4th and May 18th regular meeting minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The second motion is to approve the May ending treasurer's report and accounts payable in the amount of $711,383.98.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is under new business. It's consider approving the submission of a request for the revision of the 2019 CDBG contract from DCED to add curb ramp installation as a 2019 CDBG activity. And this I will turn over to Ms. Checo.
Thank you, President Leonard. Our 2020 CDBG contract, the only activity that is approved for those grant funds is the installation of curb ramps, and those projects are going to be bid shortly at the intersections of roadways east of Fayette Street. So the cost related with that construction is approximately around the $103,000 mark, which exceeds the funding that was granted to us in that 2020 contract for construction purposes. And the reason why that project has exceeded the estimate is that the cost of engineering has greatly increased over the course of that period. At the same time, we're seeing a decrease in the total activity from the 2019 CDBG housing contract. So those dollars right now in the home funds, we have 2 active contracts that will meet the needs of those funds. But we're just finding that those dollars are being spent at a much slower rate. We have families that are above the income threshold, so they're not able to qualify for the program, and our wait list is slowly dwindling. So you'll be seeing from us, from administration in the next couple of months, kind of asking council to push out to your residents that if they're interested in utilizing the CDBG program funds, to contact administration, and we'll work through them to see what their income levels are to see if they qualify. But bottom line is, you have COVID-19 pandemic, you have the fewer contractors, their availability is limited, the cost of materials is so high. So there's just less use of those grant monies for that housing program. So what we're looking to do is take a portion of those 2019 CDBG funds that are earmarked for housing rehab and move them to the 2020 CDBG funds that are earmarked for curb ramps, hence covering the full amount of the cost. So Chris Stetler has kind of gone through this very tedious process with DCED to get approval to utilize the funds for one earmarked use for another. And she has achieved that goal, which huge kudos to her. I would say it was painful. I'm sure she would say something else if permitted, but she's not here. So tonight, what we are asking council to consider is approval of the submission for the request for the revision of the 2019 CDBG contract from DCED to add curb ramp installation as a 2019 approved activity, and to transfer those funds from the housing rehab activity to the curb ramp installation, and you're looking at an amount of $35,000.
So the motion this evening is to approve the submission of a request for revision to the 2019 CDBG contract from DCED to add curb ramp installation as a 2019 CDBG activity.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is under unfinished business, and I will again turn this over to Stephanie.
Thank you, President Leonard. The applicant was in at your work session in June requesting a waiver of off-street parking for their new coffee house at 108.5 Fayette Street. There were no issues. It is ready to go if so inclined. And they are
eager to get started already.
Okay, so the motion is to approve a waiver of off-street parking for 108 and a half Fayette Street Morning Talk Cafe.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
The next items on the agenda relate to the Marywood Park Commission. The first item is to approve a quote for interior painting. We received 2 proposals. Again, this would be focusing solely on the interior of the first floor of the Marywood Park House, based off of the requests that the borough sent out to the contractors and the responses that we received. We are recommending this evening that council consider approving the painting quote from C&M Painters, Inc. in an amount of a not to exceed of $8,000. And
I'll
those
make that
funds, and just to clarify for the record, that those funds would be coming out of the operating fund for the Marywood Park House.
Okay, so Nita, if you'll hold that 1 second. The motion is to approve a painting quote with C&M Painters, Inc. for the Marywood Park House in a not-to-exceed amount of $8,000 from the Marywood Park Fund.
And I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
The next item that the commission has been looking at and discussing in length is the status of the roof of the house itself. We had an architect come in a couple years ago to evaluate the building as a whole. Again, I think that where the commission is currently is that as they continue to look and evaluate what they want to do specifically with that house, it's hard to gauge the future if you aren't even 100% sure about the structure, the integrity of the structure. We are not historical, because there's going to be a historical component to this in terms of the roof and the integrity of the roof. Our recommendation is that you would draft an RFP and see what responses it solicits from experts in the field. Again, kind of an unknown, especially in today's environment and market. I think if you're going to do an RFP, it's the only way that you might get some concrete data, which can be funneled to the commission to evaluate, which they would then, as an advisory commission, bring to council for consideration. Again, this is going to be a budget item. I don't know, given the responses that we've been receiving to RFPs in the last couple of months, if you'll even get a response that's timely enough for the budget, so it may be an ongoing conversation that kind of crosses over into additional fiscal years. But it's a starting point. See what you get, go from there. This evening, the commission is asking council to consider approving the issuance of the RFP. Administration would draft it, and then it would get advertised.
So the motion is to approve the issuance of an RFP for the replacement of the Marywood Park House roof.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
And the last item, the Marywood Park Commission has indicated a desire to host a fundraising event on behalf of the Marywood Park House. They are going to partner with Howell Properties and the Friends of Conshohocken Parks, who would be hosting the event for that fundraising benefit. They have not selected a date yet, and they haven't worked through the particulars because they have to go through the approval process, which would be they're making a recommendation to be able to host the fundraiser. Council needs to consider that, and then if approved, it would go to Friends of Conshohocken for an approval, and then the commission can start. The commission and Friends of Conshohocken Parks can start planning.
So the motion would be to approve a fundraiser event for the Marywood Park House to be hosting by Howe Properties.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. The next item, I'm going to go a little bit out of order here, and I am going to go to public comment first. So you would like to...
I just have a question with regard to the Marywood Park House. Amy, I'm not blue. Is this your place?
Is it painting on the first floor? Yes. It doesn't leak down there. Yes,
Only.
it's only the first floor. Well, it's plaster and it's in disrepair. So it's a little bit of, right, yes. Yeah, it's just, this is just a start at the first floor, okay? Is there any other public comment this evening? Okay. So now we will go to council member and mayor matters. Mayor Aronson?
Thank you, President Leonard. Really, just I'm just wanted to thank everyone who attended the Arts Festival and Car Show a couple Saturdays ago. We had great weather. I think everything just really clicked after 5 years of doing it. And of course, I want to give a big thank you to our team on our side, from our administration to police to fire department, Narberth Ambulance, Public Works. It's a pretty impressive team effort behind the scenes. So thank you to everyone on our side and, of course, our residents for making sure it was a big success.
Thank you, Mayor Aronson.
Yes, thank you, President Leonard. We have our summer concert series coming back again. Our first week is going to be Thursday, July 7th, and the concerts are held once a week, either at Sutcliffe Park or Marywood Park from 7 to 9. The public is welcome to come to the parks. You bring your lawn chairs, your blankets, and you can set up someplace on the grass and listen to some great music. Please just remember there's no dogs permitted in either park, so leave the little guys at home. There's parking at Sutcliffe Park. You can also park along Freedley Street as well, because there's no houses there, which is a great place to park. And there's also on-street parking at Marywood Park as well. If there's inclement weather, it will be canceled, but so keep an eye on the websites and the social media outlets. And any other questions, you can call the Borough. We're looking forward to it. This is something I did as a kid growing up in Conshohocken, so I always enjoy going every year. So thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. Ms. Barton?
Yeah, and to add to that, Recreation Services is hosting a movie night in the park this Friday night at Sutcliffe Park, and Kento will begin at dusk. The Snack Shack will have snacks and drinks for sale, and it's a wonderful, delightful, very vividly colored movie. It's a lot of fun.
It is a lot.
Do you know about Borough?
We don't talk about it.
I know.
Any Canto joke ever.
Yes,
Oh, that's so funny.
it's inside.
Nothing, thank you.
Nothing.
Nothing?
Can't solve that.
Vice President Sokolowski? Okay. Sergeant Connor, do you have anything this evening? I thank you for attending with us. Nothing to add? Okay. Thank you very much. I would like to remind everyone that the fireworks are scheduled for July 3rd, with the fireworks starting approximately at 9:30, and that the Soapbox Derby is held the following day on July 4th from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Fayette Street. Also, a reminder for everyone, including ourselves as council, there will be no work session in July. The next meeting is July 20th, 2022. So with that, we did public comment. I'm good. I'm going to say meeting adjourned. Thank you.